Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for listening in. So I'll just give you a little brief introduction for those of you who may not know me. I am the social worker at the Pacific Parkinson's Research Centre, which is located in the Centre for Brain Health out at UBC. And I have been with the clinic for almost 10 years. And prior to that, I've worked in healthcare and in the community as a social worker for about 20 years. And so a lot of my experience has been in healthcare and has been working with families and family caregivers. So, really, first off, I really do want to thank you for joining in today and for carving some time out to take care of yourself. I think you're going to hear a lot of that message over and how important that is throughout this month of webinars that's focused on caregivers as it's National Caregivers Month. So, the importance of taking care of yourself is a theme. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I really love about my job working with people with Parkinson's and with their families is the inspiration that I receive from hearing your stories. And so I do hope that as this morning goes on, that you will share your experiences and share your thoughts online, and Miriam is here to help kind of moderate those comments coming in. And so together, hopefully, we'll be able to hear your voices through type anyhow. So the plan for this morning is to define loss and grief as a foundation to the talk as it relates to people with Parkinson's and being a caregiver. And I'll talk a little bit about the impact of loss and grief on you and what that looks like, and also then some strategies in order to attend to and manage the loss. So that's kind of my plan for the morning. So, Miriam? Nope. Okay, hang on. I'm just having technical issues myself. There we go. So there are a lot of words out there to describe your role and what you are doing with a person with Parkinson's. You know, people refer to caregivers, they refer to care partners. There's even the reference to a carer, which is kind of hard to say. All of these words really hold different meanings for different people. So just for the purpose of simplicity today, I'm just going to use the word caregiver. I believe it was Parkinson's Society BC who used the tagline, Parkinson's disease is a family affair. And as such, it really does impact everybody in the family, including the caregiver. And certainly that's one of the reasons for this webinar series that they're putting on. So I would love to get a sense of who's listening in today. And I'm wondering if you can write in and share how long you have been caregiving, or maybe better said, how long has Parkinson's disease been in your life? And so while people take a minute to write in, I'm just going to keep on chatting. I don't think that anybody is ever really prepared to become a caregiver, and a condition like PD is a chronic and degenerative disease, and as such, it presents unique challenges. So, specifically with today's talk, the many different and incremental losses that are associated with Parkinson's disease are often present on a day-to-day basis. The physical symptoms, such as tremor and slowness, create losses for people with Parkinson's and their caregivers. But the cognitive and the behavioral changes, those more unexpected changes, present another level of loss as well. And a natural reaction to loss is to grieve. And for those who are faced with a degenerative disease, coming to terms with loss and grieving itself can be an ongoing process. So just as Parkinson's disease itself does not follow a predictable pattern, the experience of loss and grief can also be unpredictable with conflicting emotions all existing at the same time. Ongoing loss is one of the many challenges caregivers experience as you continually adjust to the changes in health of the person with Parkinson's. It's very different than an acute or a terminal illness, which has an end. Chronic illness is different. The losses are multiple and permanent, unending, and they really affect everyone's quality of life. So I'm just taking a peek to see kind of who's here and how long people have been providing care. So quite a lot of experience here. Yeah, and some new ones as well. That's right. Thanks, William. Okay. So I would like to try and define loss and grief. And when I was looking for an image for loss and grief, I came across this image of the word definition. And I actually thought that it really fit quite well because when thinking about loss, it's a very subjective experience. From the moment we're born, loss is part of human existence. There was an article that I read in the Huffington Post, and it talked about leaving the comfort of the womb right from the beginning of life, where you experience loss. And you're delivered into this world of many sensations. And we, experience loss when you start school. You lose the carefree existence of childhood. When you start college, you lose the routine that you had, and you're faced with creating new schedules and new routines and new people in your life. So we've all actually encountered losses throughout our lives, whether it's friendship or people, career options, expectations. The article goes on and ends with saying, with every let go, there are blessings and there are lessons to be had. So perhaps after today's webinar, I would encourage you to take a moment to think about some of the losses you've experienced in your lifetime and see if you're able to find the blessing or find the silver lining in a past loss. So how is loss defined? Well, loss is the experience of parting with an object or a person or a change in a relationship that one values. So we must acknowledge the personal pain and the disruption that accompany a loss. Losses can be minor or they can be major, and that designation really does depend on the perception of the loss by the person experiencing the loss, the value that person places on the loss. And grief, well, grief is that normal package of emotions including sadness, anger, fear, guilt, all of those kinds of emotions that accompany the loss. In the world of PD, some losses are more obvious, especially for the person with Parkinson's. So I just thought I would take a minute to talk about what are some of the losses that the person with Parkinson's might be experiencing. They're, right from diagnosis and throughout the progression of the disease as their abilities change. So they may experience loss of past abilities, of present lifestyle and hopes for the future, certainly facing the fear of more losses, loss of sexual function, loss in career and income, cognitive change and mental health changes, dignity and freedom, and certainly independence and certainty, because Parkinson's disease has such an uncertain course for many, anticipating what or what may not come next is very uncertain. So now that we've kind of just briefly talked about the losses for the person with Parkinson's, I want to talk a little bit about the losses for you as the caregiver. So what are some of the common losses that you may experience as a caregiver? And certainly as I'm talking about these ones, please do feel free to write in and share your comments or your loss experience. So some of the common losses are certainly around expectations or plans for the future. That could be travel plans, that could be living space, that might even be location of where you're living, not even the physical home or apartment or townhome that may need to change, but actually the location. If you're living more rurally and now you feel you need to come into the city in order to be closer to services or move to be closer to family, that may represent a loss for some people. Independence as a caregiver, your day now may be planned a little bit more around somebody else's needs. There's loss of privacy, more family, more friends, hired help coming into the home to perhaps help with care. There could be a loss of financial security. Perhaps the person with Parkinson's retired sooner, yourself, you may have retired sooner. You might be using savings in order to pay for care, so there could be a loss of financial security. Also, losses within your relationship with the person with Parkinson's. Are roles reversed? It may no longer feel as much of a spousal relationship as it had before, or even a parental relationship who was your confidant in the past, a person of support that may no longer be there for you in that role. So similarly, loss of shared roles and responsibilities, loss within your own social life and your hobbies. So less time or less energy to see friends or to pursue interests that you've had. It may be a loss around your own career where you've retired early or taken time off from work or stopped working completely, perhaps even turned down a promotion because of your role as a caregiver. And finally, institutionalization. That's a really significant loss for many, because for some this might be a first separation in years of marriage. So this might actually be a good time to talk about ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is a type of loss that happens when a person is physically present, but at times psychologically absent. A caregiver can experience ongoing stress and grief due to the ambiguous loss of having a spouse or a parent who is still physically here, but not present in the same way as before. In Parkinson's disease, your partner may be psychologically present, but physically very challenged and not present as they were once before. Caregivers may feel like they are in limbo, unable to resolve the losses that have already occurred while anticipating other losses that may lie ahead. And that kind of leads into anticipatory grief. And that occurs when a loss or losses are expected over an extended period of time. And I guess I'm wondering if anyone has experienced these feelings in their role as a caregiver. And again, I welcome you to write in as you feel comfortable. You may be grieving one or more of the losses that I talked about on the previous slide, but the challenge really is that there are no rituals to help you get through this time. Closure is not possible. You're faced with familiar behaviors and personality traits that have changed and that have changed the person you once knew. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are able to read that quote clearly on the screen, so I'm just going to read it out. It came out a little bit small. Some stories don't have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Life is not about knowing, having to change, taking the moment. Life is not about knowing, having to change, take the moment, and making the best. Hold on, I said that wrong. Life is about knowing, having to change, taking the moment, and making the best of it without knowing what's going to happen next. And that's called delicious ambiguity. And that quote is from Gilda Radner, and she has come up with some really wonderful, inspiring quotes. And I really liked delicious ambiguity.
Not that ambiguity needs to be delicious,
no.
But in this sense, yeah.
Yeah. So the impacts of loss and grief can really vary. There are behavioral impacts. Things like that would be isolating yourself, or the opposite, really needing to be with other people all the time. There could be a decrease in activities or interests, changes in sexual activity, loss of pleasure, and changes in relationships. Some of the cognitive impacts might include difficulty concentrating, excessive worrying, a lot of questioning, and even some confusion. Emotional impacts, we talked a little bit about sadness, despair, anger, guilt, shame, fear, mood swings, all of those. Physical impacts of loss and grief might include a lack of energy, changes in eating or sleeping habits, restlessness, and aches and pains that you didn't have before. And spiritual impacts, you might start to kind of question your belief system, or might have changes in your values and your priorities. You might be looking for answers to why something has happened. So those are just some of the impacts. When trying to understand an experience, it's sometimes helpful to look at what the researchers and what the practitioners are saying. And there are many models of loss and grief, but the most well-known one is the 5 Stages of Grief by Kubler-Ross. And she begins with denial, moves on to anger, bargaining, then depression, and acceptance. And I found this cute cartoon that's making fun of Canadian winters, but it helps to kind of understand the stages as she had laid them out. So it, again, if it's hard for you to read, I'll just read it out. The first one under denial is, shovel snow, what snow? And then you move on to anger. Well, it's been so warm so far, I just don't know why all the snow is coming now. And then move into bargaining. I swear I won't complain about no snow next year, so please just stop. Depression, okay, there is no point. My back is in too much pain. This is where I die. And then acceptance, shoveling snow is now Canada's national sport. But I think what's really important, and what this model has been somewhat criticized for, is that grief is not linear. You don't just kind of go through these stages easily and without going back and forth a little bit. So I want to present another option, and one that might make a little bit more sense to you. And even the picture there says, this is how we want grief to work. We want it to kind of move from one point to the next quite easily, but how it actually works is quite different. So the other option is really looking at acceptance of the reality of the loss, embrace the pain of the loss, adjust to those changes, to the newness and the changes, and then start to withdraw from the loss and reinvest in life in a different way. So many people have experienced many losses over time, and some seem to cope really well, and others have had few losses yet are struggling to cope. So why is that? Well, there's lots of reasons why some people cope differently or well or worse. Those reasons might include your own temperament, any external supports that you might have, internal or personal resources, psychological strengths, and how you've dealt with challenges in the past. And I think it might be valuable to reflect on you and your abilities, and then choose strategies that are really going to fit for you. Because certainly as I move on to presenting strategies, not all of these strategies are going to be suitable for everyone. So it's about thinking about who you are, what kinds of things work for you, and then choose strategies appropriately. As I said, some of the strategies that, there we go. Some of the strategies that I'm going to talk about, some will resonate for you, some may not. Some of them might be things you already know, but sometimes hearing the message a second time or again can be inspiring. And hopefully everyone will walk away with at least one pearl. So first off, I really encourage you to recognize what's happening. Recognize and talk about your feelings and about what's happening. When you address and when you name the loss, ambiguous loss or grief, you will be less likely to blame yourself, and that can be quite empowering. A key aspect of healing is acknowledgement. So recognize when you need to reach out for help, but beyond yourself, whether that's therapy, counseling, medical care, spiritual support. These are all gifts that can help move you along in your journey to wellness. There are a lot of healing resources available to meet you where you are, on books, online, and certainly support groups as well. You know, sharing the grief and connecting with others can really provide strength and resilience to help you to continue to provide the care that you do. And support groups also provide the opportunity to share feelings that you might be reluctant to share with relatives or friends. You might get a sense of relief in discovering that your feelings are experienced by others as well. So addressing those difficult emotions of guilt and anger can allow you to once again be emotionally available to the person with Parkinson's. Expect some highs and lows. You can be both strong and weak, and even at the same time. And you really do have the right to feel emotionally off balance. Be patient with yourself, and especially when you're in setback mode, my sense is that will be temporary. Pamper yourself. Inject something pleasant into your life, whether that's some fresh flowers, a new book, a soak in the bathtub, whatever it means to you. But do be good to yourself. Find an activity that you would enjoy and try and make that happen. Shift gears. So if you're stuck in a rut, take a brisk walk, alter your route, find something on that route that makes you laugh along the way. Try a new recipe, get a makeover at the cosmetic counter, sing and dance to something that you would not normally do, rent a movie that you would not normally consider. So really the concept of just making a shift in the way that you are doing your day every day. Susan Imke, who I believe is a nurse, she spoke at the Caregiver Summit in Portland in September, and she presented the idea of JOLT. And JOLT stands for just one little thing. One little thing to reframe your situation into a positive life, and that can actually make quite a sustainable change in your life. Have an open mind. Be open to the new lessons that can be learned from your very challenging experience. Consider that every event can seed something new and good if we're open to receiving it. Look for opportunities for renewal, and at times you may have to look really hard to find them, but often they are there. You just have to be open to it. Keep a journal. Writing out thoughts and feelings is an effective way to look at what's happening. Write about your insights and reflect. Writing about your insights and reflecting on them can be quite empowering and can help you to find fresh opportunities and move in a new direction. Sometimes writing about your losses can help you regain some emotional distance, make it more manageable and less frightening. Feeling the pain is healthier in the long run than denying the fears, the anger, the sadness, the loneliness, the resentment. Now, if you're new to journaling, you might want to start with writing down a daily highlight or a gratitude. You might want to use some of the prompts that I have up on the screen. What makes me angry or sad or scared? Or what have I learned about myself? Or it looked fun, or I found it funny and endearing when the person with Parkinson's did such and such. Or even just the unexpected gift I received today was. So those are just some starter points to start the concept of journaling if you've not done it before. Another strategy is to establish goals for yourself. You know, facing losses can leave you feeling a little bit out of control. Try to counteract that feeling by setting goals for yourself, like learning a new skill, or taking a course, or volunteering. But what's really important when you set goals is to set goals that are manageable and rewarding. So setting up a plan that's going to work. Take action to stay healthy. I think this is a message that caregivers are hearing all the time, but it's certainly worth repeating and can be quite valuable as a strategy. So eat well, exercise, laugh every day, take breaks, sleep, maintain some spiritual connections, remain intellectually stimulated, socially connected, and use some stress management or relaxation activities. I have their mindfulness, and there's one website that I listed there, but there are a number of apps that you can put onto your phone. One Mindful Moment is another app, and there's also 10% Happier, which is an app that some of my patients have used, and they've really liked it. Surround yourself with those who feed you. Be with people whose presence energize you and stay away from those who drain you. Create a psychological family, the people you turn to in times of crisis and in times of celebration. This circle of support can certainly go beyond family members. These are the people who are there for you in good times and are there for you in the bad times. And those are the ones who are able to understand the losses of caregiving. And they can provide a healing hug, kind of like Snoopy and Charlie Brown in this picture. You also recognize the formal resources and support systems that are available to help you if your psychological family needs some expanding. Some other strategies. Work together with your person with Parkinson's, with your loved one, to address and come to terms with the losses and changes in function. You don't have to do this all on your own. Honor your memories of what used to be, while acknowledging how things are now and what is still possible. Your life is not going to be the same, but it doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy it. Someone once said that when something becomes a memory, then the memory becomes a treasure. And create something new. New plans, new connections based on how your life is now. Look for ways to connect with the person with Parkinson's as he or she is today. And try to seek out joy in that relationship. The past is the past, and the future is unknown. And and I think it's valuable to try and enjoy the gift of the present. So reflection is another strategy, and I kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, to think about past challenges in your life and how you navigated through them. Then use those experiences, excuse me, to remind yourself of your courage and of your strength, and possibly then use some of those same strategies again. What was helpful? What was not? Trust in yourself that you have the ability to meet the present challenge. So, loss and grief are part of caregiving stress. And coping with loss and grief may be more challenging than coping with the demands of providing care. So it's really important to try and distinguish whether or not to try and distinguish between caregiver grief and for the many and ongoing losses, and whether or not it's stress felt by yourself by the demands of caregiving. So two different things, and it's helpful to kind of tease that out a little bit. Having to let go, you have to try to let go of some of the past in order to move forward, while at the same time holding on to pieces of that past that fuel you forward, the parts that give you strength. Recognize and acknowledge your personal growth as a person that has resulted from being a caregiver. You may have learned new skills like cooking or managing finances, or developed an inner strength and resilience that you did not know you had. Sometimes the profound transformations that occur among the losses and among the grief can give rise to new hope, new purpose, and new meaning in your life. Try to reframe loss as a change, not as an end to a relationship or to the end of an ability or role. What has changed, and focus on what has remained. It's the closing of one chapter and the opening up of another. And really, resistance to dealing with some of these feelings is a lot more draining than acceptance. You may have lost a part of your loved one, but we don't want you to lose yourself. Forgive yourself for not being perfect. Give yourself permission to live your own life while helping other people live their lives. Strive to find that balance between meeting your needs and the needs of the person with Parkinson's. And this picture is about imagining the feeling of 1,000 arms embracing you, and the sounds of 1,000 hands clapping for you for everything that you do every day. So I do have on the next slide, and Miriam said that this will be archived, so you will be able to look at these again. But this is just if you wanted to do some more reading. There's a number of good books that I recommend around coping with loss and grief. Also a couple of websites there as well, which have some good information. And in terms of counseling, Parkinson's Society of BC provides counseling. as well at the Pacific Parkinson's Research Centre. For those of you who are living more remotely, there's a great website, counselingbc.com, where you can locate other counselors who might be closer to home for you. And it's a really good site in that you can select what area of specialization you're looking for in a counselor. So perhaps you're looking for somebody around loss or grief, or perhaps there's another issue that's bigger for you. So you can actually put in what is the area of expertise you're looking for. And the last piece there are caregiver support groups, which of course I'm a supporter of. And I have a quote there that we can alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. I would probably change it slightly and say alone we can do some, and together we can do so much, because I really do believe that individually you are impacting another person's life significantly, but together I think we can do a lot more. Thank you again for joining in this morning and taking the time to make this a priority in your day. And I think Mary and I both really wish you well going forward. So thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for participating and asking really great questions. Hopefully we'll see you all next week at 11 a.m. until 12 for Wendy's presentation. Bye now.